Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we have a study session to start our Charter Review Committee. Would anybody like to start out?
Madam Chair?
Councilman Bazey?
I guess, I know that you and I talked about this before. It's probably one of the things we have to check to see if we meet more than 3 council members to see if it's a quorum, to go over the charter, but also include some residents with...
Well, Councilwoman Hicks, go
ahead, Councilwoman.
Councilwoman Hicks Clayton.
I was going to add to that because absolutely the Charter Review Committee or Commission should be comprised, I would say, minimum 2, not more than 3 council members to avoid a quorum and violation of Opens Meeting Act. What is a public meeting? But definitely should be made up of citizens as well, and you are going to need legal representation on that committee, as you know.
Absolutely.
But definitely should be a citizen commission.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And when we talk about appointments to that committee, I think that's something that requires, I would recommend city council concurrence. So we are approving those appointments as well by the body of 7.
Madam Chair.
Councilman Constant?
Margie Van Houten and I were on the subcommittee, I'll call it, for revisions to the charter. And as you may or may not know, the process is we have to come up with the changes, come up with language, send it to the Attorney General's office. They have to approve it. And if they approve it, and we have to get it done in plenty of time, then it goes on the ballot and the people vote on it. We were working on making the charter general neutral. We had on the ballot twice, taking the libraries out of the recreation department. And we had talked about some of the other changes to all the language about the district court and the constable and so forth is outdated.
Absolutely. There were certain, go ahead.
First, I'd like to know who appoints the Charter Commission, 1, and how many people have to serve on it?
I am
Because
waiting.
I have no idea how that goes.
Are we expecting our attorney to be here? Because he would be the one to answer that.
Nope. The attorney called me and I said, if the council chair directed you to be here, then be here. So that's why I did not. I'll just say one thing that you need to do is, a lot of you have never been through this process and have no idea what it is. I would recommend that you contact the Michigan Municipal League and have them come out and tell you, because if you're going to make a minor change to the charter, you can do it through these committees. If you're looking at a major revision, you need a charter revision commission like Dearborn did. It's a 2-year event. And it's about $250,000.
Right here, I have the city charter revision from MML. It's online, and I will send it to all the council members after today for us to review, because it's over 102 pages. And it kind of outlines what you have to do in regards to that. I would encourage everyone to read it, and then we can discuss it further in the future. There are a lot of parts of the charter that I went through that are actually obsolete, that just can be deleted with no questions asked. I mean, there's certain committees, the mayor is required to attend at Wayne County level that hasn't been around for 15 years. That's something we can just easily strike out of there. And we may want to just start with the easy things that we know are no longer valid. Councilman Musker.
I'm going to ask this to the mayor, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Years ago, maybe 6-7 years ago, they were talking about redoing some stuff and talking about the fence ordinance. Does that count in this, or is that just something completely different?
Anything that can be done as a result of a change in ordinance would not require this. The people voted that charter in, so you can't even change one word.
Correct.
Unless the people vote to change it. The other problem you're going to run into is that, and I think Bob will remember this, that I think you guys came up with 4 revisions, and the reason is you can't have more than, I think it's 75 words in a ballot, and it's got to be very clear. And so consequently, I don't know how the public would react if you put 20 different items on the ballot, because you can only deal with a specific item per the thing, and it's not easy. Mr. Miyake has a lot of experience in writing these things and knows the guy in Lansing, and even with that contact, it became difficult to get the language approved.
So in other words, each individual change has to be approved on a ballot separately.
Pretty much, because what happens is you have to clearly tell the voter what they're doing. So what the language said was kind of like, hereby we are requesting the elector to change section, I'll just make this up, 5.2, which deals with the amount of money that has to be bid for purchases from $1,500 to $2,500. Okay, you wouldn't think that's much, but it takes up one question, but it clearly defines to the voter
Yes,
what
I
they're
agree.
voting for.
I agree.
So you can't sit there and say, well, here's 15 items that no longer belong in the charter because, as the chair commented, there is no Wayne County Commission anymore, and they used to have the mayor would serve on that. Well, you can't do it by reference. You have to actually say section blank, 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 dealing with blank, blank, blank is hereby removed. And so what happens is it becomes very lengthy, and the time we put 3 or 4 on the ballot, we lost, and then we came back, and I think we got 2, and I think the people clearly didn't understand the one. They thought we were creating a new department, when in fact we were trying to eliminate a department, and it just got misread.
Madam Chair?
Councilman Abdullah first.
Go ahead.
So this was one of the concerns that I had. Although I believe that we should have a commission, and I think we ought to look into this and start making whatever changes, especially on the items like Chairwoman Denise mentioned that are completely obsolete. But I mean, I go through this on somewhat of a regular basis, and this is our current. I mean, we got this much stuff. We got the charter. We got. There's just so much to be changed. I'm just thinking in terms of logistics.
That's what
Where do
I'm
you
just
even
thinking of.
begin? And if everything has to be approved by the residents as a vote, I mean, I've gone in to vote, and every one little item would be like a paragraph this big, so I could just imagine if you're changing a whole charter. I'm just trying to understand the logistics of if it could even be, I mean, I'm sure it can be done, but time, effort, money involved for some things like for example, some things that the chairwoman was saying is obsolete. I get that, but if it's obsolete, then it's almost irrelevant anyways. So it's just.
Why cloud up the charter with it, though? Just get it on
No,
there,
I
make
get
it
that.
easier.
I get that, but I wished it would be like 1, 2, 3, whatever people make the changes, we approve it, and we're good to go. But the problem is, if everything has to go in front of the residents, just logistically, it seems like a pretty difficult thing to do.
Expense.
The thing that I believe Councilman,
Councilman Constant was next.
Go ahead, Ray.
Councilman Muscat?
I'll refer to the gentleman from the north end.
so what I'm thinking of, okay, we have that charter, it says about the mayor being at Wayne County. We know it doesn't happen. Let's pick something else that's more important and put it on instead of that. We already know that doesn't happen, okay? So I think if we look at certain things, and if there's certain things that we like to see changed, let's write them all down, pass them out to the people that's going to be on this commission, and see what happens. That's my suggestion.
Yeah, Madam Chair?
Councilman Constant?
So there's like 4 different things we're talking about. One is some cities have had a charter commission, they want to adopt a new charter, they want to rewrite their whole charter. And that's item 1, which I don't think anybody's talking about. Now, number 2 is some of the obvious things like making the charter gender neutral, but no changes in our form of city government. Number 3 is just amending ordinances or adding ordinances, updates regarding publication and so forth, which now can be done more and more online, and we don't have to go through the expense of publishing. But any major changes, this, for the vote of the people, that running that election is going to cost $30,000-$40,000 at least to put it on the ballot. And then you have to send it up to the Attorney General's office, and they have to prove it. And before, we had sent proposed language, but the Attorney General didn't get it back to us in time to put it on the ballot, and it died. I still have a lot of the notes and things from that.
Councilwoman Hicks Clayton?
Well, first of all, I'm concerned about cost too, but I think it's going to be important to pick your priorities by subject, what you want to amend and why, and identify that by section. This has nothing to do with ordinances, though, because ordinances we amend. That doesn't go before the voters on a ballot.
Right.
Only the charter amendments do. So I would recommend, again, we talked about a committee, again, having citizen engagement, council representation, it needs to be fair. But identify, the council body can give some direction as well as the mayor, the administration, I recommend that input. And identify your top 3, for example. I would not, in my opinion, inundate the public with a ballot initiative that's too lengthy, because they're going to get frustrated, they're not going to read it, and then it's going to be easy to say no. Write it off. So again, we've got to talk about priorities by subject. What is the most important to do right now?
Well, what I like too is we have pretty much an election every year for something. Maybe every year we can maybe put 3 or 4 things on, and eventually we're going to get it all taken care of over time.
So that's where you get like a punch list, right?
Yeah.
And then prioritize that.
And just put it
according
out,
to impact.
Yeah, because I can hardly imagine none of us remember when the original charter was written.
That was a long time ago.
My dad does.
I know your dad does. I mean, how hard was that to pass?
1963?
Did you have to put
He
all
told me,
the
like,
wording?
for example, they were going to, John Canfield, who was then the supervisor,
Right.
wanted to be able to pick the police chief, and a lot of cities, the ability to pick the police chief, and then so they had a presentation from Highland Park, which was back then, the city with a lot of money, about Act 345, and they decided to have where you had to hire the police chief from within, things like that. It was a lot of thought that John Canfield was going to be the first mayor, and he was. Richard Dunn ended up being the chief circuit judge, and one other person was a attorney also. And then my dad did a lot with Bob McLaughlin, who was another South Ender, who became our city clerk.
Yeah, this is not going to be easy, but like I said, some things are real easy as far as getting them out of there that would possibly confuse the public if they read it online and say, well, why aren't you doing this? Because it hasn't existed in 15 years.
Well, first things first,
Simplify it.
shouldn't we just put a commission together first thing?
Yes.
And get the, I mean, we got to put the horse ahead of the carriage here. And,
Let's stop for a minute. We've got issues with technical issues here.
You want to move the microphone? Isn't that what we used to do it last time?
You want to stop the meeting for a minute and check to make sure nothing's going wrong in there?
Sometimes with my computer, I turn it off, turn it back on, and it works again.
Let's stop the meeting for a minute.
Reboot it.
Yeah.
We're going to stop it. Let's resume the study session. Good evening. We have decided that we are going to ask Corporate Counsel Miyake to give us an opinion on how we should go about doing this charter review. Also, I will go to MML and ask for their advice too. We are having technical difficulties tonight with our PA system, so at this time, we have all agreed to adjourn and readdress this at a later time. Adjourn.